Hey YouTube, it's ShryphonX here. Today we're going to be talking about Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo Chapter 9. Like and subscribe for more content. Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo Chapter 9 has revealed the source of the entire sequel. This flashback evokes Vinland Saga vibes, highlighting the pursuit of peace and the devastating consequences of war, as well as the stark differences between the two worlds. This chapter spans 20 pages, including the cover page. Editor's note: the situation seemed to be improving, but let's recap the events. Cross and Maru were orphaned when the Sumerian government, or perhaps the government ruled by the Discunt tribe, razed their village to the ground. Their parents were crushed by the rubble of their home during the attack. As their father lay dying, he clutched a rock as if it were the most precious thing in the world, but Cross doubted its value. They were later raised by a miner named Dura, who had a dream of building a canal. After much effort, their dream came true, connecting the Discunt colonists with the Rumelian tribe, who were once isolated to the wastelands. These positive developments were shattered when the Kalyan devoured the daughter of the Discunt chief. Modulo's success, the color page, features the eponymous character, Dura, and the two boys, Cross and Maru, who have essentially become his adopted sons. We've been getting plenty of color pages lately. The first two chapters were expected, but Chapter 7 and now Chapter 9 are a testament to the growing popularity of the Jujutsu Kaisen sequel. The original series achieved remarkable success, selling 100 million copies by the end of last year. Perhaps the sequel will also be a success story, potentially inspiring Gege Akutami to extend the story beyond the intended 3 volumes or 25 chapters. At the end of the chapter, we find 6 bonus illustrations. Side by side, on the left, we have the new generation of Jujutsu sorcerers, Yuka, Maru, and Tsurugi, all drawn by the artist Yuji Iwasaki. Their past counterparts from the main series are also present: Yuta, Yuji, and Maki, respectively, drawn by the original author, Gege Akutami. Comparing the two art styles is quite interesting. It's amusing how Yuta and Maki have completely replaced Megumi and Nobara, respectively. This makes sense since both characters were prominently featured during the Culling Game arc and Shinjuku Showdown as actual leads alongside Yuji. The chapter begins with cross-narration about the Sumerian third eye, the source of Urorka, the cursed energy of the Sumerians. Interestingly, the only time Sumerians other than humans shed tears from their third eye are during birth and death. However, the third eye places a heavy burden on the brain, which can lead to its downfall. Among the tribes, the Rumelian Cross tribe are the only ones who cry from it when a Kalyan dies. The right prefrontal cortex, the black box of a human brain, is where jujutsu techniques are engraved in a sorcerer's brain. Recall that humans generate cursed energy through streams of negative emotions, which ultimately leads to the creation of cursed spirits. Tengen's barrier restricts the creation of these spirits to Japan and limits the existence of humans who can exorcise curses, known as sorcerers. The right prefrontal cortex, which serves as a center for both memory and empathy, is closely related to the third eye. The third eye, lodged and attached to the entire prefrontal cortex, means that a Rumelian's right prefrontal cortex is significantly more sensitive and attuned to the fate of the Kalyan creatures. Like the Uchiha of Naruto, their powerful eyes are fueled by so much love that it can breed hate. As Gojo states, the greatest curse of all is love, and as the chapter demonstrates, and Maki's own words to Tsurugi reveal in Chapter 1, love and grief can breed immense power. However, given what we will witness, it is likely that Maru's tribe was the first Sumerians to venture into space, while Jujutsu was an evolution distinct to humans. The Sumerians developed their own powers differently, which also explains why very few possess powers at this point. A commentary on the misattribution of religion to war, the chapter commences with the discovery of the Deskunt chief's daughter being devoured by the Kalyan. As a result, the chief demands 90% of Rumelian land, including the canal, as reparations for the Kalyan's act of cannibalism. The other Rumelian members protest to their elder, outraged by this false accusation levied against their tribe and fearful of the impending war. In Cimmeria, the stronghold over the land and the Rumelian are no exception, but the Deskunt have grown more powerful, and their tribe is ruled by a strong leader. The Deskunt have challenged the Rumelian to a one-on-one duel for the sake of their tribe's honor, with each tribe selecting its finest warriors. The victor will inflict brutal punishment on their opponent and their kin until they achieve their objective, while the loser must acknowledge the claim for the sake of peace. One of the adult Rumelian explains that when Cross and Maru's village was destroyed, the Deskunt also held a tournament, where Dura emerged as the winner. This match was deliberately set up in favor of the Deskunt, because their war chief was Dura's opponent, yet Dura still emerged victorious. This made Dura the strongest Cimmerian, but Dura reminded them that other stronger warriors had also declined to participate in the tournament. By this point, Cross finally understood why Dura had kept his past hidden from Cross and Maru. The elder explained that the Deskunt were quite cruel to men who failed to uphold their warrior's honor, so refusing was out of the question. Cross offered to go, knowing that refusal would mean death for the Rumelian, but Dura, with much hesitation, decided to go instead. On the day of the tournament, the Rumelian felt their entire bodies go numb. We now meet Debura, who appears to be the war chief of the Deskunt. Yes, that terrifying aura is still present here, just like it was in Chapter 2. Maru panicked, telling Cross that Dura should flee and that they were already grateful for everything Dura had done. Dura engaged in conversation with his opponent, Debura, and inquired about his sister's well-being. Dura asked if Debura was forced to participate against his will, but then shifted his tone, stating that the outcome was already decided, but he asked for a favor. Debura looked at Dura with despair, asking what he should do since he was compelled to continue fighting until Dura was dead. Dura suggested they talk for a while, since there were other tribes participating in the tournament besides the Rumelian and Deskunt. Dura then revealed the truth about the expulsion of the Rumelian tribe 10 years ago. While the wall between them was rooted in religious beliefs regarding the Kalyan, the war itself was not caused by the Kalyan. If you recall, the Kalyan was a sacred beast that protected the Kalyan and killed those from other tribes, which is why the majority of people called for the death of the Kalyan and perceived the conflict between the two tribes as a religious war. This was the justification for many conflicts against the Rumelians. In reality, the Deskunt were seeking an aura called Mul, which could be converted into more power. This might be the sacred rock that Cross and Maru's father held. The reason their parents died was to safeguard a powerful resource that would eventually be exploited for more war. This is becoming increasingly relevant, as it's not due to religious differences that certain countries engage in conflicts, such as the Crusades, the War on Terror, or the Gaza genocide. Instead, they're invasions by more powerful nations aimed at acquiring resources. The other Rumelians urged Dura to cease speaking, fearing that he and his tribe would be put in further danger. This is why Dura has remained silent about the truth behind the village's destruction. Once declared a religious war, other tribes will find it challenging to speak out. Such a label will make them question their own knowledge and become reluctant to mediate or provide assistance to the targeted demographic. This resonates with real-life scenarios. Zionism, the dominant political ideology of Israel, and its Christian variants, have been employed to portray Israel as a victim of religious significance that must be protected. Consequently, any mention of the Palestinian plight or criticism against Israeli attacks and policies is labeled as anti-Semitism. Dura emphasizes that religion should be an integral part of daily life, a sacred text, not a grandiose cultural ideology used to oppress other races. He pleads with the Discunt to respect the Romelians and treat them as dignified beings, not as objects of religious worship. Dura urges the Discunt to recognize not a religion, but their way of life, which is deeply intertwined with their religious beliefs. He urges them to preach, literally preach, his message of unity and friendship. His final plea is for the Romelians and Discunt to become neighbors, to be friends. The Discunt chief insists on the commencement of the match, causing anguish among the Romelians, particularly the boys and Jabaloma, who covers his eyes, unable to bear witness to another loved one's demise. Maru erupts in anger at the outcome, but Cross intervenes, restraining him. Maru is furious that Dabura held back, not fighting with all his might, and thus disrespecting Dura, who lost his life in this duel. However, Dabura simply stated that he didn't want to lose face in this duel, to lose his honor. Later, Cross discovered that Dura and Dabura were best friends. Apparently, Dura was the only one who knew about Dabura's abilities at the time, as Dabura detested standing out. Before Rumel was isolated due to the war 10 years ago, they fought and encouraged each other to grow stronger despite their different tribes. Maru's pioneering idea started the series. While Dura's body is buried with flowers covering him and a man in the Sumerian prayer position, the boys reminisce about Dura's teachings about being neighbors. However, Cross now realizes that this is no longer possible, and we see the Kalyant's body being buried alongside Dura. The same creature that was blamed for worsening the conflict between the two tribes when its sole intention was to protect its beloved people. Cross and Maru meet with the adults, who are all perplexed about how they will convince everyone to move when Discunt's territory becomes the next day's land. The remaining 10% of the land is still too dry, far from the river, and they wouldn't be able to prevent disease. It wouldn't be enough space for the tribe either. The adults are determined to fight back or die, trying to force Discunt's horns up their rears. For Jabaloma, a warrior's duty is not to kill and die, but to protect the women and children. Maru asks if the other tribes can help, but they dismiss it as futile since tomorrow is the deadline. Suddenly, Dabura arrives, revealing that Dura left something behind for the two boys. Maru and Cross find the stone that Dura instructed them to set aside and not touch again when they were constructing the canal. As it turns out, Dura had saved up a large quantity of mole, which he hid all his life so that Discunt wouldn't discover it, and thus ensure the revival of the Romelian people. Maru and Cross recall how they had asked Dura why he was building the canal. Dura believes that villages were established based on someone's past ideals, which is the purpose of the canal for Dura. He wants to ensure that even after his death, someone will continue his legacy and make something better out of the canal. Maru sees the mole rocks as Dura's parting gift, a continuation of his legacy. When the twins touch the mole rocks, their third eye releases their Rorka. Jabaloma realizes that the rocks are not just mole, but a pure mineral. Maru suggests that they leave the land and find a different place, a land of peace where their suffering tribe can finally thrive. The adults believe there is no other place in Sumeria, but Maru points up to the sky, suggesting that they can find a different planet to settle on. Dabura promises to protect the Romelian tribe in Dura's name. The chapter ends with the orc gathering to form a slab of mole rock that floats with their Rorka. This slab is the mothership the Sumerians arrive on. It appears that the Romelians are the first Sumerians to leave space. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe for more content. ShryphonX out.